This story is titled, Stepmom Charged Me Rent for My Own House While Her Kids Lived Free. When I stopped paying, her plan to turn dad against me became her biggest mistake. Hey everyone, I need to share this wild story that happened to me recently. I'm Lily, 23 years old, and I live in a huge house near Minneapolis. You might want to grab some snacks because this is going to be quite a journey. First, some important backstory. I lost my mom to breast cancer when I was 8 years old. Life became incredibly tough after that. My dad completely fell apart and could barely function during that first year. He was trying to keep his architectural firm running while dealing with overwhelming grief, which was nearly impossible for him to manage alone. My mom's parents were absolute heroes during this time. They basically moved in with us and helped raise me while my dad tried to pull himself together. This is where the important part about our house comes in. My grandparents were financially comfortable. They weren't billionaires or anything like that, but they were well off enough to buy this massive 5-bedroom house in one of the nicest areas of Minneapolis suburbs. The plan was for all of us to live together so they could help raise me properly after my mom's passing. Everything worked perfectly for a while. Then my dad met Susan at some architecture convention in Miami about 2 years after my mom died. He was there promoting his firm, and she was doing event planning, or whatever her job was at the time. According to my dad, they just clicked. Looking back, it seems more like she saw her chance with a grieving architect who owned his business and decided to pounce. Susan literally moved across the country after knowing my dad for only 3 months. There were red flags everywhere, but nobody seemed to notice them except my grandparents and me. They got married just 6 months after meeting, and that's when the real fun began. Susan brought her 2 kids with her. Marcus, who's 26 now but was 12 then, and Olivia, who's 22 now but was 8 at the time. Marcus was already the most entitled kid you'd ever meet, while Olivia wasn't too bad initially. Unfortunately, over the years, Susan turned Olivia into a mini-clone of herself. My grandparents tried their best to be welcoming to our new family members, but I'd often hear them late at night talking about how they didn't trust Susan. They knew she was just after my dad's money, and as it turned out, they were absolutely right. However, they stayed quiet for my dad's sake because he seemed happy for the first time since my mom died. Looking back, I wish they'd said something, but they were just trying to keep peace in the family. The first few years with Susan and her kids were really rough. She started with small things, always commenting on how the house decorations were old-fashioned. They weren't. And constantly complaining that the kitchen needed updating. It didn't. She was forever criticizing how my grandparents were set in their ways. They definitely weren't. Then she got bolder, starting to rearrange furniture without asking anyone, and even throwing out some of my mom's decorations, claiming they were collecting dust. She was slowly taking over the entire house while my grandparents were too polite to say anything, and my dad was too love-blind to notice. Then the chores started. At first, it seemed normal. Everyone should help around the house, right? Except everyone somehow turned into just me. Marcus was supposedly too busy with sports. He actually sucked at lacrosse, but Susan made my dad pay for private coaching anyway, and Olivia was too young to help, even though she was only a year younger than me. By the time I turned 12, I was doing most of the cooking and cleaning around the house. Susan would literally check the baseboards with her finger, making sure I dusted properly. Meanwhile, Marcus's room constantly smelled like a nauseating mix of Axe body spray and week-old pizza, and Olivia's floor was permanently covered in clothes that she was supposedly about to put away. The double standard was infuriating, but there wasn't much I could do about it as a kid. Here's the really important part that I didn't know until recently. Before my grandparents passed away, Grandma in 2020 from heart problems, and Grandpa followed barely 3 months later because he couldn't live without her, they actually put the house in my name. Like, legally, it's all mine. They must have seen this drama coming years ahead and wanted to protect me. But I had no idea about any of this because nobody told me. My dad knew, but didn't think it was important to mention. Spoiler alert, it was very important. Susan obviously had no clue about this arrangement, or she would have tried getting her name on the deed somehow. So for the past few years, I've basically been living as a servant in my own house, cooking, cleaning, and doing everyone's laundry, yes, even Marcus's nasty gym clothes, while Susan sat on her ass all day watching Real Housewives and complaining about how I loaded the dishwasher wrong. Marcus graduated college 2 years ago, barely passing his classes. I'm pretty sure my dad paid someone off to make that happen. He hasn't worked a single day since graduation, claiming he's trying to be a content creator. but his TikTok account has like 200 followers, and it's all just him doing those cringe dance trends badly. Olivia's currently in her 3rd year of college, supposedly studying business, but she's really just partying and posting aesthetic pictures of her coffee cups on social media. My dad pays for everything for her. Her apartment near campus that she barely uses, her car, which she's already crashed twice, and her credit cards, which she maxes out monthly. And there I was, working part-time at Dutch Bros, taking online classes, doing all the housework, and trying to save up money, because Susan kept hinting that I needed to contribute to the household. The irony of this situation was completely lost on her. The day everything finally went down started like any other crappy day. I had just finished an 8-hour shift at Dutch Bros where some lady had screamed at me about oat milk. That's another story altogether. I was completely exhausted, but still had to go home and cook dinner because heaven forbid Marcus would have to move from his gaming chair, or Olivia would have to put down her phone. I was in the kitchen making this spicy shrimp pasta recipe I'd found on TikTok. Not gonna lie, it actually slaps. When Susan came strutting in, wearing one of her supposedly designer outfits that I'm pretty sure came from Ross. She had this look on her face. You know the one, like when a teacher catches you passing notes in class. She sat down at the kitchen island and started watching me cook like a hawk. I was already on edge because she always finds something to criticize about my cooking. The week before, she'd complained about too much garlic, which is literally impossible, by the way. And the week before that, she said it was too spicy when it was literally just Alfredo sauce. Then she dropped this bomb on me. We need to have a serious discussion about your living situation. I was confused. What living situation? I'd been living in this house longer than she had. But she continued, "Your father and I have been talking. We think it's time you start paying rent. After all, you're working now. It's not fair for you to live here for free while we cover all the expenses." The audacity of this woman was unbelievable. I was literally standing there with a wooden spoon in my hand, the sauce probably burning, just trying to process this complete BS. Meanwhile, I could hear Marcus upstairs screaming about his KD ratio in Call of Duty, and Olivia's TikTok sounds were blasting from the living room. So I asked her, trying to keep my voice level because I'm petty but not stupid, "What about Marcus and Olivia? Are they paying rent too?" She did this thing where she dabs her mouth with a napkin, even though she hasn't eaten anything. I swear she learned it from watching Real Housewives. And then hit me with, "Well, that's different. They're my children. They're still getting established in life." Marcus is working on his content creation career, and Olivia is focused on her studies. I almost laughed out loud. Marcus's content creation career consists of badly lip-syncing to trending sounds and playing Fortnite on Twitch for literally 3 viewers. I'm pretty sure one is his mom and another is his alt account. And as for Olivia's studies, that girl hasn't opened a textbook since freshman year orientation. But here's where it gets good. Susan started laying out her reasonable rent requirements. $800 a month in this economy, plus utilities. And I would still be expected to help out around the house, which basically meant continuing to be their maid. I was standing there stirring the pasta sauce when something in me just snapped. You know that moment in movies where everything goes quiet and clear? It was exactly like that. All these years of being treated like Cinderella, all the snide comments, all the extra chores, all the times I had to wash Marcus's crusty gym socks or pick up Olivia's fake lashes from the bathroom floor. It all just hit me at once. So I turned off the stove, safety first, LOL, and put down the spoon. I looked Susan dead in her over-Botoxed face and said, "Let me get this straight." My voice was weirdly calm, surprising even myself. Marcus, who hasn't earned a single dollar since graduation and spends his days yelling at 12-year-olds on Xbox, doesn't have to pay rent. Olivia, who maxes out her credit cards buying Shane hauls and has never touched a vacuum in her life, doesn't have to pay rent. But I do? Susan's face did this weird, twitchy thing. Probably the Botox fighting with her facial muscles. She started going on about how I was more established, how family helps family, and some other BS she probably read in a Facebook mom group. That's when I decided to drop my own bomb. But first, I called everyone to the dining room, telling Susan I wanted to discuss this as a family. I was basically using her own manipulative tactics against her, which felt pretty satisfying. Marcus whined about leaving his game, and Olivia acted like getting off the couch was literal torture. But eventually, everyone was sitting at the table. The pasta was cold by this point, but I'd lost my appetite anyway. Susan started explaining her proposal to everyone, acting all official like she was some kind of CEO. Marcus was smirking, probably thinking about how he could spend his allowance on more V-Bucks now that I'd be paying the bills. Olivia was recording everything for her private story because that girl loves drama as long as it's not about her. That's when I did it. That's when I said the words that changed everything. I'm not paying rent because this house belongs to me. The silence that followed was incredible. Oh my God, I wish I had recorded it. You could hear a pin drop. I wish I had a picture of their faces. It was like I had just spoken in an alien language. Marcus actually stopped mid-bite, his fork just hanging there with spaghetti falling back onto his plate. Gross. Olivia's jaw literally dropped, the first genuine expression I'd seen on her face since she discovered filters. But Susan's reaction was absolutely priceless. You know that loading wheel you get when your computer freezes? That was her face. It was like her brain literally couldn't process what I just said. Then they all started laughing, like full-on hysterical laughing. Good one, Marcus snorted with pasta sauce on his chin. I swear this dude eats like a toddler. Did you get that from TikTok or something? Olivia already had her phone out, probably thinking this would make great content for her Relatable Family Moments series, which has like 50 followers max. Susan was trying to laugh too, but I could see the panic starting to set in. She had that look she gets when her credit card gets declined at Nordstrom Rack, which happens more than you'd think. What are you talking about? She tried to sound dismissive, but her voice was shaking. This house is mine and your father's. This is where it gets good. I just leaned back in my chair, trying to channel that calm villain energy, you know. Why don't you call Dad and ask him? I suggested. Susan's fake nails started tapping on her iPhone screen so fast I thought she might crack it. Kind of wished she would, to be honest, because guess who would have to go get it fixed? That's right, me. She put the call on speaker because of course she did. She loves an audience when she thinks she's about to win an argument. The phone rang a few times, then my dad picked up. He sounded tired, probably because he was actually working while his stepson was building his brand or whatever. David! Susan's voice was all sweet and fake, like when she's trying to get an upgrade at a hotel. Lily is telling some interesting stories about the house. She says it belongs to her. That's not true, right? The silence that followed was deafening. You could literally hear my dad doing that thing where he clears his throat when he's uncomfortable. He does it a lot around Susan. Then finally, well, actually, my in-laws put the house in Lily's name before they passed away. Boom! Susan's face went through more colors than my old mood ring from Claire's. First red, then white, then this weird greenish color I've never seen on a human before. What do you mean they put it in her name? She was practically screeching now. When were you going to tell me this? I didn't think it was important, my dad said weakly. Typical dad move, to be honest. Not important? Susan was standing up now, her chair scraping against the floor. You didn't think it was important to tell me that your teenage daughter owns our house? She hung up on him mid-sentence. The phone hit the table so hard, I thought the screen would crack. Again, kind of hoped it would. Marcus wasn't laughing anymore. Actually, he was looking pretty pale, probably realizing that all those times he told me to get out of his game room, it was actually my game room. Olivia was still recording, but now she had this deer in headlights look. I could practically see the TikTok drafts being deleted in her mind. Susan was breathing like she had just run a marathon in her fake Lululemon leggings. She was trying to compose herself, but I could see her hands shaking. Well, she said, attempting to sound calm but failing hard, this has clearly been a misunderstanding. Of course you don't have to pay rent, Lily. Let's just forget this conversation happened. But here's the thing. I didn't want to forget. I was done forgetting all the BS they'd put me through over the years. Done being the family doormat. Done watching them live rent-free in my house while treating me like their personal maid. So I just smiled and said, "Oh, we're definitely not forgetting this conversation." I paused for dramatic effect. What can I say? I've learned from the best. I think it's time we had a serious discussion about your living situation. The look of pure terror on Susan's face was better than any Christmas present I've ever gotten. But wait, it gets even better. Because while they're all sitting there processing their new reality, I could hear Susan's phone buzzing with texts from my dad. She was ignoring it, but I knew exactly what was happening. He was probably panic texting her about all the legal documents my grandparents had left. The ones that proved everything I had just said. All right, so after that nuclear dinner scene, I went to bed feeling pretty good about myself. You know that feeling when you finally stand up to your high school bully? Multiply that by 1,000, and that's how I felt. But Susan? Oh no, she wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The next morning, I was about to head downstairs for breakfast when I heard Susan's voice coming from the kitchen. She was on the phone with my dad, on speaker because of course she was. And guess what she was doing? This woman was literally trying to convince my dad to get me to move out of my own house. Here's the conversation I overheard. And yes, I recorded it on my phone because at this point, I trusted these people about as far as I could throw them. Susan: David, you need to do something about this situation. Your daughter is becoming a problem. Dad, sounding tired: What do you want me to do? Susan: What about those out-of-state colleges she applied to? You could encourage her to go to one of them. Tell her it'd be good for her independence. The audacity of this woman, I swear. She was really out here trying to ship me off to another state so she could keep living in my house rent-free. But wait, it gets better. Dad: I don't know. Susan, using that syrupy, sweet voice, the one she uses when she's manipulating someone. Think about it, David. She's young. She needs to experience life away from home. And honestly, dramatic pause, I'm worried about her mental health. All this anger she's carrying around. It's not healthy. Excuse me? The only thing affecting my mental health was living with the evil stepmother from every Disney movie combined. But here's the part that really got me. Dad, maybe you're right. I'll talk to her about moving out for college. It might be better for everyone. I literally had to bite my fist to keep from screaming. My own dad, who I've lived with my whole life, who I took care of after Mom died, who I cooked for and cleaned for, just agreed to try to kick me out of my own house. So I did what any rational person would do. I walked into that kitchen like I hadn't heard a thing. Susan almost dropped her phone when she saw me. She was still in her silk robe, probably fake like everything else about her, holding her world's best mom coffee mug that Marcus and Olivia got her from the Dollar Tree last Mother's Day, and she acts like it's fine china. "Good morning, sweetie," she chirped, like she wasn't just plotting to get rid of me. "I made coffee." First of all, she didn't make coffee. She put a K-cup in the Keurig I bought with my Dutch Bros money. Second of all, since when had she ever called me sweetie? Marcus stumbled in looking like a zombie, probably up all night streaming to his 3 viewers, and Olivia followed shortly after, already fully camera ready. Takes her 2 hours every morning, I kid you not. We were all sitting there eating breakfast, which I made, by the way. Susan doesn't know how to cook anything that doesn't come from a microwave. And the tension was so thick, you could cut it with a knife. Marcus was shoveling cereal into his mouth while scrolling through TikTok. Olivia was taking pictures of her untouched avocado toast for Instagram. And Susan was pretending to read emails on her phone, but I could see she was actually Googling how to evict someone who owns your house. Not very subtle with the phone angle, Susan. That's when I decided to have some fun. "Hey, Susan," I said super casually. "I was thinking about what you said yesterday about rent." She perked up like a meerkat, probably thinking I was about to back down. "I think you're right," I continued. The look of relief on her face lasted about 2 seconds before I dropped the bomb. "So I've been doing some calculations based on market rates in our area, and I think $1,200 per person is fair. That's $3,600 for you, Marcus, and Olivia. Of course, that doesn't include utilities. Oh, and there will be a security deposit." Chaos! Absolute chaos. Marcus actually choked on his frosted flakes. Olivia's avocado toast fell face down on her new white crop top. Karma is real, folks. And Susan? Susan looked like she was about to pass out. "You can't be serious," she sputtered. "We're family." "Oh, I'm dead serious," I replied. "And since you brought up family," I pulled out my phone where I had the recording of her morning conversation with Dad. "Let's talk about your little plan to ship me off to college." The color drained from her face so fast I thought she was going to faint. Marcus and Olivia were looking between us like they were watching a tennis match. After I played that recording of Susan's phone call, things got wild. Like Jerry Springer level wild. Susan jumped up from her chair so fast, she knocked over her precious world's best mom mug. Sadly, it didn't break. She was doing this weird thing with her face where she was trying to look angry, but her Botox was fighting back, and honestly, it was kind of hilarious. "You recorded me!" she screeched. "That's illegal!" I just smiled and said, "Actually, we live in a one-party consent state. I checked. Also my house, my rules." Marcus was just sitting there with his mouth open, milk dribbling down his chin. I swear to God, this dude never learned how to eat properly. Olivia was frantically texting someone, probably her TikTok group chat where she pretends to be rich and unbothered. Susan started pacing around the kitchen, her knockoff Nike slides making that annoying flip-flop sound on the tile floor that I had cleaned yesterday, by the way. She was muttering something about calling her lawyer cousin, the one who supposedly specializes in real estate law, but actually just does DUI cases in some strip mall office. Then she tried a different approach. Suddenly, her voice got all soft and concerned, like when she's trying to get a refund without a receipt. "Lily, sweetie, I know you're upset," she said in that patronizing tone. "But this behavior, it's not healthy. Your father and I are just trying to help you. Maybe some time away would be good for you. There's this lovely college in Michigan." I cut her off right there. "Susan, let me make something very clear. I'm not going anywhere. This is my house. The deed is in my name. And if anyone's going to be leaving, it won't be me." That's when she lost it completely. "You ungrateful little..." I'm not going to repeat what she called me, but let's just say it wasn't very world's best mom of her. She started going off about how she raised me like her own by making me their maid. How she sacrificed everything to be a good stepmom by shopping at Target instead of Nordstrom. And how I was tearing this family apart. What family? Meanwhile, Marcus and Olivia were having their own meltdowns. Marcus: "This is bulls asterisk asterisk asterisk. I'm not paying rent. I'm about to blow up on Twitch." Narrator: "He was not about to blow up on Twitch." Olivia: "Daddy won't let you do this. He loves us more than this stupid house." Spoiler alert, he doesn't. I just sat there sipping my coffee, that I made because Susan still can't figure out how to use the French press, watching them spiral. It was like every bit of entitlement and privilege they'd been harboring was just spewing out. Then Susan pulled out her trump card. She grabbed her phone and started calling my dad again, probably expecting him to rush home and fix everything like he usually does. But plot twist, I'd been texting with Dad all morning. I sent him the recording and explained everything. For once in his life, he was actually backing me up, kind of in his own weak way. When he answered, he was on speaker again. Susan: "David, you need to come home right now. Your daughter is out of control." Dad, sounding surprisingly firm: "Susan, we need to respect that it's her house. Maybe we should start looking for a new place." The silence that followed was amazing. Oh my God. You could hear Marcus's brain cells trying to process this betrayal. All three of them. Susan's face went through this fascinating journey. Shock, anger, disbelief, and finally, fear. Real fear. Because it was finally hitting her that she was about to lose everything. The cushy life, the free ride, the power trip she'd been on for years. That's when she made her biggest mistake. She turned to me, got right in my face, and said, "Listen here, you little B asterisk 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 asterisk. I don't care whose name is on the deed. This is my house. I've lived here for 12 years, and no spoiled brat is going to kick me out. I will make your life hell." Perfect. Just perfect. Because guess what? I'd been recording this whole conversation too. Not only that, but I had already talked to a lawyer. Shout out to some online legal advice for the recommendations. Turns out, threatening the legal owner of your residence isn't a great idea. Who knew? Okay, so remember how I mentioned talking to a lawyer? Best decision ever. Turns out my grandparents didn't just put the house in my name. They set up this whole legal thing, trust estate stuff, I don't know all the legal terms, that basically makes it impossible for anyone to contest it. My lawyer literally laughed when she saw Susan's legal threats in the texts. The day after Susan's little meltdown, I went nuclear. I served them all with real eviction papers, like official court documents and everything. The look on Susan's face when she got served? Priceless. She actually tried to refuse to take the papers, but apparently that's not how it works. Marcus's reaction was exactly what you'd expect. He threw his gaming chair down the stairs and broke it. Lol, karma. Olivia had a full Instagram live meltdown but gained like 200 followers though, so congrats to her, I guess. But Susan? Oh man, Susan went full psycho. First, she tried calling every lawyer in town, like literally every single one. But here's the thing about small town lawyers. They all know each other. And after the first couple told her she had no case, word got around. Even her DUI cousin wouldn't touch it. Then she tried the social media route, posting this long, dramatic Facebook status about how her ungrateful stepdaughter was trying to make her family homeless. But that backfired hard when one of my mom's old friends commented with receipts about how Susan had treated me over the years. Side note, shout out to my mom's friend Jennifer, who's been keeping screenshots of Susan's BS for years. The hero we didn't know we needed. The best part? Susan's fancy friends from her country club started distancing themselves. Turns out they don't like associating with someone who's about to be homeless. Funny how that works. Meanwhile, Marcus and Olivia were having their own crisis. Marcus finally realized that being a content creator isn't actually a job when you have 247 followers and your main content is raging at Fortnite. He tried applying for real jobs, but turns out professional gamer unofficial doesn't look great on a resume. Olivia's sorority friends found out about everything because she posted it all on her private story, but has like 200 followers. Now they're all gossiping about how her designer bags were probably fake and her dad isn't actually rich. She's having a full identity crisis. But the real drama came when Susan tried her last desperate move. She waited until I was at work and tried to rearrange some things in the house. By rearrange, I mean she tried to take some of my mom's old jewelry that my grandparents had left for me. Unfortunately for her, I had already installed security cameras after the eviction notice, again thanks to online advice. Got her on video clear as day, trying to stuff my mom's antique necklaces into her tacky Michael Kors bag. I called the cops, filed a report, and showed them the footage. You all should have seen Susan trying to explain to the police officer why she was just moving jewelry that didn't belong to her. Her fake tears didn't work this time, probably because her mascara wasn't even running. Waterproof makeup really ruins the dramatic effect. The officer was this older lady who took one look at the situation and was not having it, especially when Susan tried to play the "but we're family" card. Officer: Ma'am, attempting to steal from the legal owner of this house isn't a family matter. I didn't press charges yet because, honestly, having this on record for the eviction case is better. My lawyer was thrilled. Speaking of the eviction, remember how Susan always bragged about her investment accounts and how she was independently wealthy before meeting my dad? Yeah, turns out that was all BS. She has literally nowhere to go and she's freaking out. She tried calling my dad's sister for help, but my aunt, who never liked Susan, just sent her a link to apartment listings in the sketchy part of town. I actually felt bad for half a second until I remembered the time Susan accidentally donated my mom's Christmas ornaments to Goodwill. The best or worst part? My dad finally grew a spine, kind of. He told Susan that if she doesn't leave peacefully, he's not going with her. Turns out 12 years of her toxic BS was enough, even for him. After the whole jewelry attempt, Susan knew she was screwed. But being Susan, she had to make the exit as dramatic as possible. The day before the final eviction deadline, she tries one last power play. She calls this family meeting, LOL, what family, and comes strutting in wearing her fake Chanel suit, the one with the obviously wrong pattern that she swears is vintage. She's got this whole speech prepared about how she's choosing to leave because she can't stand the negativity or whatever. Susan starts this whole monologue about how she's taking the high road. Since when is being legally evicted taking the high road? Then she drops what she thinks is her trump card. Your father and I have decided to move to Sacramento. We just bought a beautiful house there, much nicer than this old place. First of all, they didn't buy anything. I literally saw her GoFundMe, Family in Crisis Needs Housing, that got exactly $43 in donations, mostly from her MLM group. Second, my dad wasn't even there for this announcement because he was at a hotel. Turns out watching your wife try to steal your dead wife's jewelry is kind of a mood killer. Who knew? But here's where it gets good. While Susan's doing her fake, graceful exit speech, the moving guys I hired start showing up. Like right in the middle of her "this house was beneath me anyway" rant, there's these big dudes walking in with boxes and dollies. Susan's face does that weird frozen thing again. Botox plus rage equals comedy gold. She starts screaming about how she wasn't ready and needed more time to sort her belongings. The head mover guy, shout out to Justin, you're a real one, just looks at her and goes, "Ma'am, we have strict instructions. Everything gets packed and moved to your storage unit today. If you want your stuff, you'll need to take it up with the court. Y'all, she lost it." Full nuclear meltdown. Susan started grabbing random stuff, claiming it was family heirlooms, including my mom's ceramic bowl that she literally tried to throw away last year. Olivia was crying about her TikTok backdrop being ruined. Marcus was having a panic attack because he couldn't disconnect his gaming setup fast enough. But here's the best part. Remember that designer stuff Susan was always bragging about? The vintage bags and premium clothes? The movers started packing it up, and half the labels were literally falling off. While all this was happening, I was just sitting on my couch, drinking my coffee in my house, watching them scramble. I posted a few updates to my private story, and suddenly all these people from high school were sliding into my DMs like, OMG, I always knew she was fake. Here's the final inventory of what they tried to steal on their way out. 3 of my mom's necklaces, caught on camera, my grandma's china set, also on camera, the good coffee maker, I bought that with my Dutch bros money, every single towel in the house, weird flex but okay, the garage door opener, seriously? But you know what? They can have the towels. I already ordered new ones. Really nice ones that Susan would have said were too expensive while dropping $500 on her fake designer stuff. The actual eviction? Chef's kiss perfect. They had to do the walkthrough with the sheriff's deputy present. Standard procedure, but extra satisfying. Susan tried to claim I damaged her things during the move. The deputy just pointed to my security cameras and asked if she wanted to file a false report. She shut up real quick. So where are they now? Susan and my dad are staying at her sister's 2-bedroom apartment in the next town over. Apparently, it's not going great. Her sister posted on Facebook about ungrateful house guests who don't do dishes. Marcus had to sell his gaming setup to pay for a deposit on a room in some sketchy house share. He's working at GameStop now, which honestly might be good for him. Olivia moved in with her sorority sisters, but that lasted about a week before they got sick of her crying. Now she's commuting 2 hours to college from her mom's sister's place. Her latest TikTok is about being humbled, but she's still getting ratioed in the comments. As for me, the house is so peaceful now, like weirdly peaceful. No more fake designer perfumes smell everywhere. No more passive-aggressive notes about loading the dishwasher correctly. No more 3 a.m. screaming from Marcus's gaming sessions. I turned his old room into my home office already. Decorated it with actual designer stuff because I can afford it now that I'm not paying for their groceries. Olivia's room is becoming my dream closet. And Susan's meditation room, where she watched Real Housewives all day, is now my yoga studio. Dad calls sometimes. He's staying with Susan for now, but honestly, he sounds tired. I think he's finally realizing what everyone else knew 12 years ago, that he married a gold digger who isn't even good at gold digging. Was I too harsh? Maybe. Do I regret it? Nope. They fucked around, they found out. Turns out karma doesn't care about your fake Gucci slides. Final update. My mom's best friend Jennifer is renting one of the spare rooms now, so I'm not alone in this big house. She's teaching me all mom's old recipes and helping me replace everything Susan threw out over the years. Sometimes good things come from bad situations.